What's up, guys? My name is Oliver Hayes. Still on Zoom with Harrison Simeon. And yeah, unfortunately, not as great of news as we had the last time we were here talking. So I don't know. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, the Buffalo's women's basketball team was eliminated in the quarterfinal round of the Pac-12 tournament yesterday. We are recording it the morning after, just because we had a busy night. I mean, you had the men's basketball game where they picked up a massive win over Oregon. But for the women's team, Oregon State has become their kryptonite. The third time they've lost to them this season in a double overtime, instant classic, crazy game. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you you wrapped it up pretty well. Um, I mean, yeah, I was watching at home and I could just feel the energy and excitement from there. I mean, it seemed like there was a lot more fans in the crowd than that first game against Oregon. And then of course, like straight from the get-go, at least for Colorado getting out to that early lead, um, everything seemed well and dandy until Oregon State started leading the charge back. Um and uh and yeah, then from that point on we kind of had a ball game. Um but you talked about this in your recap, and I'm sure, everyone else kind of saw this, but it really seemed like Colorado would come out, or in both halves, Colorado came out and dominated the first quarter of the half, before Oregon State kind of flipped the script. And it almost kind of seemed to play a little bit that way in the overtimes as well. So I was just wondering, like, I don't know what your takes on that were and why that might have been.
Well, I don't know why exactly it sort of like alternated in who had the upper hand throughout the majority of each quarter, but it was a really good start because OSU came out really flat. I mean, they started, I think, 4 for 18 or something around there from the field. Um, we played with a lot of intensity, and there were a lot of positive takeaways I had from yesterday, just in the fact that we played with so much more intensity than we had for the vast majority of the game, even when we were struggling. Um, than some of those other losses leading into the tournament. But I think it was just Oregon State executed right when they needed to, and they just found a way and sort of, they were able to feed Reagan Beers early, keep the game within reach. She had 27 points, 13 boards, two steals, two blocks, and she really dominated Internet Vonleh for the most part in the beginning, down low. Vonleh had a really nice day of her own, had 20 points. Um, I saw some aggressiveness, especially on offense. But it was very tough to stop Reagan Beers. And when you had as little depth as you had, Charlotte Whitaker did play, but only about 6 minutes of the game, or I think maybe even less. And the majority of that was when Vonleh fouled out in the second overtime. So tough to see them go out like that. Really emotional game, emotional loss, another one of them. Um, Going back to, the Utah game where they lost at the buzzer, senior day, getting upset with, the vast majority of that team either being extremely close to or being seniors playing their last game in Boulder now, what it looks like. Um, because latest bracketology dropped us to a 5 seed. Now you're most likely going to have to go through a team like Notre Dame with Hannah Hidalgo. If you get past that first round, go to South Bend, play a really, really tough team in the ACC. But yeah, overall, yesterday, just another really tough emotional defeat. And even though players like Sherrod, Frida, Vonleh, and, I saw plenty of good contributions from others, like they really stepped up. It was just the execution late that really made the difference and led into those overtimes where we just kind of got gassed out.
Yeah, no, I think I can definitely agree with that. Just because, yeah, like I highlighted earlier, I mean, it really seemed like in each half, Colorado, came out guns a-blazing and just kind of fell off. Well, I don't know, kind of a seemingly more polished, cleaned up, Oregon State team, kind of got to work. It really seemed like even though shots weren't falling, especially early, they were able to be like, okay, well, yeah, we have Reagan Beers. We know where she wants to get the ball, and they were able to feed her inside and really find something that they were able to stick with. Um, but kind of going into that matchup between Beers and Von Lay, both dealt with foul trouble before Von Lay eventually fouled out. But one thing I was kind of wondering about is I forget exactly when Beers got her second foul, but it was fairly early on in the game, and she stayed in. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't know, why isn't Colorado attacking Beers on the defensive end, and even the announcers on the Pac-12 network, um, highlighted that. And I was just wondering what your thoughts kind of were, and um, why Beers really seemed to kind of have her way with Vonleh a little bit, even though Vonleh was able to, get 20 points and four birds of her own. It really just, I don't know. Like you said, I mean, 27 and 13 is quite a bit better, especially when you're able to stay and play the whole game and not foul out.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just a struggle for Von Lay to prevent her from getting to her spots. I mean, she got really good post positions. He's super athletic. Um, and it just seemed like Von Lay struggled to really prevent her from doing what she wanted and deterring her to maybe, towards the perimeter. Um, so I think with Beers playing her best game in any of those three, it just came down to, she kind of had that aggressive mindset, knowing that, the rest of the team isn't really getting their shots to fall. I think they started 1 for 10 from three, um, which they're a really good shooting team. They that's what they like to do. They like to work from inside, and Beers opens up all the everything else. But that everything else wasn't open, even when Beers was playing well. So it really just she played super aggressive and had Vonleh out of position enough times to really get some offensive boards and clean up those mistakes that she occasionally would make because it's such a good matchup between two talented centers.
Yeah, no, definitely. Um, and yeah, no, it really just kind of hurts for this Colorado team, obviously, because they lost and lost their chances at a Pac-12 tournament victory. But as far as the rest of the team, like you brought up, they did not shoot all too well as a collective. Outside of Beers, I mean, you look at Talia Van Alphen, who had significant roles in the first two games, only shooting 4 of 14 with 13 points. Um, and you look at her, so that's just kind of, yeah, I don't know, just kind of tough to live with as a Colorado team that really seemed to do everything they could do. Um, but really, the next person that I kind of wanted to follow up on uh was Oregon State's freshman, I believe, number 3, Dominika Parova. Hopefully, I pronounced
Prova.
that correct.
Hmm.
Pronounced that correctly.
Something
But I
like
mean,
that. They called her Dom. So
okay, gotcha. But yeah, obviously, you think of the big three that she hit. But
yeah.
along with a string of big clutch baskets. And I just want to know what it was like seeing a moment like that unfold for someone who, wasn't necessarily considered when, talking about two of the best teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah. I mean, she came off the bench. I really didn't have much knowledge on her before yesterday's game. I knew of, some of their other bench players. I knew Tamia Gardner could have been a huge factor. I knew um, who was it? Lily Hansford played pretty well the first time we matched up against them. AJ Murat, Donovan Hunter. Donovan Hunter played out of her mind. She played 48 of the game's 50 minutes, which is just insanely impressive. And she hit some really clutch baskets late. But Tom Perova, of all people, was in with the game on the line, hits the three-pointer to put them up three with, I believe it was just a couple seconds left or 30 seconds left in the first overtime. And then Jalen goes down, strikes right back. It's a crazy spinning turnaround jumper. But, that wouldn't have mattered, or that wouldn't have mattered to tie the game if Perova hadn't hit that shot. And so she really came through in the clutch, and Oregon State's coach was really raving about her after the game. She's a freshman, and she really played like a senior. Like she played with ice in her veins best possible time. And it was tough because there's so many other players you have to worry about on Oregon State, where that kind of player can just kind of get lost in the shuffle, and that's how she got open for that corner three.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it always seems like in these type of big games, there's always kind of a, I don't know, an unlikely hero,
Yeah.
along with the stars. Um, but the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on before we get into the future implications as far as, what this might mean for March and how this might impact the team, and maybe just how the rest of the Pac-12 tournament unfolds. But at what point in that game do you think Colorado lost it? Because like I don't know, I think about like the end of regulation where Jalen pulls up for a mid range, and it didn't seem like that great of a look. That's just like one play, obviously, where you're like, okay, yeah, obviously it's like one of the biggest plays of the game. No wonder you might be like, yeah, they lost it there. But I was wondering if there were any smaller moments, either in the first, like no matter, just throughout the game that Colorado really seemed to let it slip away.
I don't know if it was a small moment, but it was a collection of turnovers in one, one quarter. And unfortunately, Jalen Sherrod, who had an awesome game otherwise, she talked about how she kind of didn't do a good job of managing the game. And she had 5 turnovers in the fourth quarter after having none for the first three, which I thought was great so far. I mean, she had missed some shots, but, was still attacking and, kind of putting the Batman cape on, as I mentioned in my recap of, really trying to play hero, but that can catch up to a player extremely easily. And you saw her have some mental lapses and commit some of those turnovers that led to the Oregon State run. Um, and it was tough to find a ton of production outside of the core three of Nettie, Jalen, and Frida, especially Frida, who had, I think she had 17 points second half. But in the first half, it was tough to find anything besides Jalen and Nettie. And they were running a lot of pick and roll, trying to get Nettie inside. And sometimes it would be tough for her to, it's tough to play against Reagan Beers on both ends. Um, she was able to get deterred a lot of the time when she was trying to, try to assert her will. But yeah, you notice Maddie Nolan only had again three total shot attempts, 2 from 3. Again, just not able to get a lot off. And even though the rest of the team somewhat did, you have to get a shooter that's in such good form more than 2 threes. And she made one of them. I know. I believe. Yeah, her last few games. I mean, we were talking about how she was shooting probably about 60% from three. And Sarah Smith had 2 threes, one of them kind of a late one that didn't matter. But other than that, I mean, it was all Frida just trying to navigate the pick and roll. I thought she played an excellent game in 44 minutes. I mean, she has some underrated stamina in terms of just being able to outlast. I mean, she played 66 minutes between the two games, yeah, yesterday and Wednesday. Um, but yeah, it was tough to find 3-point production again, even though you see the efficiency, but just tough to find the attempts when it really was needed. When you sense the game's tide start to turn, and I think that's what happened with Jalen is she started feeling the game's tide start to turn. They were executing, they were finally hitting their shots. Van Alhoffen was getting good looks. Donovan Hunter. Um, and unfortunately for Jalen, a lot of her, when she noticed that, she maybe got a little too overambitious at certain points. And so I think that maybe there wasn't one key moment, but there was a lot of them in that fourth quarter. We were up, 12 with 7 minutes to go, end up going to overtime. You only scored 3 points in the last 7.5 minutes of play in
Yeah.
regulation.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like, I mean, I definitely agree with the um, you know, Jalen kind of getting a little, yeah, over ambitious. I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, especially, yeah, getting late in the game. And like you said, if you're on the tide's starting to turn a little bit, you start to press, especially when you've been playing great. You know that you've been, the leader of the team the whole year. Um, and then I thought it was interesting that you brought up the 3-point attempts because, yeah, still not near the amount of attempts that Colorado wanted. Because with the first two Oregon State losses, we highlighted the lack of 3-point attempts there. I think it was only like 12 and 13, somewhere around there. But it was like their two lowest 3-point shooting games of the year. And it was and that issue kind of stayed prevalent in some of their other losses, like their one to Utah at the buzzer. Um, so yeah, no, just a little frustrating that they still weren't able to figure that part out, even though they did shoot almost 50% from three. Um,
One
but
thing I will add, I know I predicted the big Clay Miller game. Did not happen.
yeah, no, definitely a tough look. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it looked like she was playing hard. I mean, obviously they're all playing hard, but I don't know. There was just something about the season where I mean, obviously the season's not completely over yet, with March Madness, um, you know, around the corner, but it really just seeming like Quay just could never really get it going this year. Um,
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, she could never just put together a really consistent stretch. I mean, she had a really nice game um, against Oregon. Had 8 of her 10 points, all pretty early, just but was able to set the tone. And she's such a smart player. And just talking to her in press conferences this year, she seems like arguably the smartest player on the team that can just navigate all the pressures of the game so well. But you don't really see a ton of it on the court. I mean, she seemed to be a non-factor offensively. I mean, she had 1 point or one shot she hit, I think, early in the first half, maybe first quarter. But other than that, she didn't score at all. She had 8 rebounds, but it was tough to get a lot of rebounds because Oregon State beat us in that by 10.
yeah.
And that's usually what we do to other teams, but Oregon State really, that's maybe an underlying factor about the loss is that they got a lot of rebounds, a lot of offensive rebounds too.
Yeah, I definitely think that I don't know. I guess with the Mike Quay Miller comment earlier, it's more about the scoring this year that's really fallen off after
Yeah.
because she was the leading scorer last year, um if I'm not mistaken, and yeah, so really just to not see that same bucket getting production, but still able to lead the team in rebounds, and obviously she played 37 minutes of this game for a reason, and starts and does all the things she does. But yeah, just I don't know. So yeah, still kind of going back to looking at the number of 3-point attempts, but also just getting players more shots, especially when throughout the season I feel like J.R. Payne has highlighted how dangerous this team as a whole can be. And that you can really look at you know 5, 6 different players, maybe even 7 that could help you win a ball game. Um, but going into the future, or looking ahead to the future, I just want to know what you think about what the Pac-12 tournament may end up looking like, and then what March Madness will hold for the Buffs.
Yeah, well, on the Pac-12 tournament, I guess I'll answer that first. It's been pretty chalk so far. Every single higher seed has won. It'll be Stanford and Oregon State at 5 p.m. today, or that's local time, so 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And then UCLA USC, which should be probably the best game of the whole tournament, right after. And so if I had to predict who would win, I mean, it was so hard to predict the opening rounds because I was, trying to see upsets because there were so many upsets last year. But now there have been literally none. Um, even if we won, I don't think that would be yesterday. I don't think that would have been considered much of an upset, though it would have made things a lot more fun, at least as, a fan of the team and being able to cover them. But there have been some good games. I mean, USC Arizona came down to the wire. Um, some first round games like Arizona and Washington came out of the wire. So that, we talk about how Arizona ever plays everybody close. They've had the two closest games of the tournament so far. Um, I really don't know what to make of it. I know Utah didn't put up much of a fight after the second half got kind of wound down against UCLA, which is the upset I predicted. Thankfully, it actually does work out for the Buffs. and that they won't jump us if they were to make a run to the championship game or something like that. But yeah, at this point, I'm going to stick with my winner in Stanford. They started out a little bit slow against Cal yesterday, but pretty much dominated from that point on. Yeah, I'd have to stick with Stanford. And then for the Buffs in March Madness, I think if you get exactly what the bracketology says right now, it'll probably change. Um, there was a big upset right before or right after that came out in that Ohio State got first rounded in their conference tourney by Maryland, which was kind of wild. Um, but or maybe it was second round, I don't know. But they got eliminated very early, and they're number two or number I think at least somewhere around the top five in the country right now. So yeah, that was a big upset. So we could see some shakeup, but right now it's looking like CU is going to be a 5 seed, which isn't bad, but it's not what you would want with the home court advantage of Boulder being so important to their success with the altitude stuff like that. So you'll have to possibly, if the ESPN bracketology stays the way it is, go to South Bend, play 12 seed, which will be always a tough game. 12 seed's got nothing to lose. The last year we were in that kind of situation against an 11 seed in Middle Tennessee, what blew them out of the water. I'd say there were less first round upsets in women's basketball than men's, though it still happens, so you never know. Um, yeah, then you'd have to go to South Bend and play Notre Dame, which would be a really tough game with Hannah Hidalgo being arguably the best freshman in the country right now, or right behind Juju Watkins, and just how she's able to play so well in so many different ways. Kind of reminds me of Celeste Taylor when we played Duke in the round of 32 last year. And then you'd have to go to, I think, either Albany or Portland for the regional against most likely a number one seed. So it does make the path kind of hard. Being a 4 seed would also be difficult because you'd end up against the one anyway. But it could end up being a silver lining. There could be some silver linings and just the fact that you get the rest, you go into it feeling better even though you lost. And, I think the early exit shows how good the Pac-12 has been this year. I think
Yeah.
that's my last takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone could argue with how good the Pac-12 has been this year. Um, I mean, yeah, it's been really a treat as a CU student. Like, I don't know, obviously it kind of sucks because maybe Colorado isn't as highly seeded or as highly ranked as they could have been, if they were playing some easier opponents. But, we've been able to see some great games this year. See some of the top players in college basketball. And I think like we brought up in the podcast before you went out there, I think you said it was the Colorado had the third hardest strength of schedule in the nation. So I don't know, definitely very battle tested. Now even more postseason battle tested with the longest game in Pac-12 tournament history. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what happens exactly in March. Where exactly everything shakes up, but as at least as we saw last year, I mean, anything can really happen, and this team can get hot fast. And if they play, like they did against Oregon and Oregon State, I feel like there's not too many teams that I don't know that could best them.
I
But
think for our sake, I think it's best to hope that whatever the number one seed is, barring that we make it through the 4 seed in our regional, that we hope it's a non-conference opponent because I think if it's a Stanford or a UCLA, maybe even if it's a Stanford, I'm not, I like our chances against a Stanford and UCLA. We played them twice. Again, I mean, we played much better the third time around against Oregon State than the first two, and same could apply to UCLA. So I still am not worried if we have to play a 1 seed. Though if it's South Carolina, I mean that you can't really be like, oh crap.
yeah,
You
but
but you never know. You never know. Last time we played a number one team in the SEC was LSU. So
uh, but I don't know. Seems like a good note to end off.
Yeah,
For the women's side of things. But I don't know. Jumping into the men's game, I don't know how much you were able to watch of that. Um,
I actually came back after I finished my recap, which it took me until the presser of Cal Stanford to finish. I was in the press room for so long, and I was like, "Oh crap, I gotta get this done now." Um, but I ended up grabbing some dinner, running back to the room, and I watched about the whole second half. So I have a decent amount of knowledge on, the flow of the game, how we're able to pull out that win. But I wanted you to talk about it because I've been talking so much about the women's. You watched the whole thing and you wrote about it. So tell me what was really the biggest factor in arguably the CU's best win of the year, by far their best win on the road.
I mean, personally, I thought this was one of their best road efforts. I felt like this game was very reminiscent of the second half and overtimes of the USC game on the road. Um, the refs were letting a lot of things go. I have to look at how many total fouls were called. Um, yeah, only 9 called on Colorado and only 16 called on Oregon. So definitely not that many.
Mm,
Um, there was only 19 total free throws between the two teams, so not a lot of fouls or free opportunities from the line. In Colorado, I mean, Oregon definitely tried to take advantage of that, but Colorado definitely did as well. And it was interesting because Jackson Shelstad, their star freshman, he didn't really perform too well in Boulder, but then came out the gates just on fire, scoring their first 7 points, then getting Nafali Dante going with an and one off an assist. Um, Before Colorado, then that's when their energy picked up and they built an 11-0 run right back um to tie the game. Uh so it was really just I don't know, I'm kind of talking a lot just like thinking about everything that happened. Um but I don't know, it was just yeah, really just the energy. Just first and foremost, I mean, guys are flying around. KJ Simpson, I don't know how many games this year he's played a full 40 minutes, but I know that was his second one in a row. Um, yeah, you kind of have to do without star freshman Cody Williams, who scored a career high 23 points in the first time around against Oregon. Not having him, not having Julian Hammond to back up Simpson. Um, and so I don't know, for your star point guard to be able to play full 40 minutes with that much energy, and that much pace, and then also Tristan da Silva to keep going, and then I don't know, really just I don't know, the most surprising, but definitely probably the most needed factor of this game was Javon Hadley hitting a career high 4 threes in
yeah.
the second half.
I
I mean,
I watched all those. I mean, he was, we talked about this season and how he would be the X factor just in general. And for when they really needed him to be that, those shots were insanely massive.
yeah, no, definitely, and I mean, yeah, for a while, I mean, he really was Colorado's only offense for the first 10-15 minutes of that second half before Colorado finally separated, at least slightly to give them just enough juice to get over the hump. Um, but I don't know. I guess touching on Hadley real quick before I go into my next point. It's just that like I don't know. I talked with Hadley before the season, and he brought up how he was a good shooter at um Indian Hills Community College in JUCO. I think he said he shot like 35% or something like that. And last year he took like I think he was 0 for 1 for on 3 point attempts. So he like didn't
Yeah,
he didn't even take he like only took one. And this year, like you just saw him, shooting in practice and getting more shots up and whatnot. And you're like, okay, well maybe he'll hit some. And at first you didn't really see it as much, but he actually started taking them. And I feel like the biggest one you think of is the one he hit against Washington with the shot clock running down at home, to give them the edge. And from there, like still, I mean his career high before last game was only 2 3-pointers, but I don't know. He has a knack for hitting them at huge times. Yeah. So, I mean, that was just fantastic to see. But I don't know. The one thing I wanted to bring up that just had me I don't know. That just was very poetic, I'd say, about this game was the end of the first half. You have KJ Simpson coming down. And so I guess this is before you were watching, but he came down, I think, after Oregon had tied it, and there was a few seconds left, and I'd have to watch the play again to see if Oregon was intentionally trying to foul before they could get the last shot up, because they had a foul to give, or if KJ just anticipated the foul coming. But it looked like KJ had gathered the ball and was going up in his upward motion, and they were the foul on the floor, and not a shooting foul. And Colorado ended up
Mm.
not getting didn't not only not get three free throw attempts, but they didn't end up scoring at all. Went into halftime tied. And in the second half, as you saw, Jack KJ is on the opposite end of that, giving the two
Right.
fouls that Colorado has, and on that second one being so insanely close to a shooting foul with the refs wiping that one off again. Where I thought Shellstad may have even had a better case than Simpson had at the end of the first half, and I just thought that was, I don't know. There's nothing really you can say about it just because it's up to the refs, and I guess I don't know your interpretation of the rules, but I just thought it was, I don't know, crazy seeing the both halves end like that, and yeah, just having it barely work out in Colorado's favor after seeing so
Yeah.
many of these close games just barely slip away, especially on the road.
Right. I mean, the fact that it was a close game, you needed every last second of it to come away with that win. And when Luke got that rebound, I was just so relieved because this felt like a game where, they usually would end up on the opposite end of where it would be us taking a have and having to take a desperation three to try to tie it up or, get back in it. But this time I felt like when they started to miss those free throws and the inbound got messed up by Tristan and then he got blocked, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Their late game woes back again on the road. Um, but they really just did just enough to come with the win. And I was really just proud because we haven't seen that much at all this season from this team. And when they desperately needed it, they need this win to go into March Madness and get that bid, which has been on the fence for a while now, which we can get into next.
Yeah,
That was, you mentioned this was their Super Bowl, and they won their Super Bowl for right now, at least.
yeah. I mean, it's a little ironic with me, like calling this a Super Bowl just because I don't know. The last five games have all been Super Bowls, and this next one coming up against Oregon State is a Super Bowl. Especially with how much Joe Lenardi hates the Buffs. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, no, seeing the Buffs get this win, especially because in this close fashion on the road, but also I don't know, looking at some of their wins at home. I mean, I brought up that Washington win. There was a Washington State win, but I mean, really besides that, I feel like I mean, I'm probably missing some games, but I feel like a fair amount of their home wins have come by a fair margin. Not to say that
Yeah,
some of those games weren't competitive or that they didn't, need to make some big plays to win them, but I feel like, yeah, I don't know, a lot. They're winning by a large margin and losing by a little bit. And
yeah.
so I don't know, see them finally, yeah, just get over the hump was huge.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the non-conference schedule, going back to that, didn't end up as good in terms of competition as maybe you anticipated, with Miami being a huge game, just made the Final Four the year before. And now they've kind of fallen off, so that doesn't look as good. But a second quad one win. We talked about the specifics of all that in the podcast last week, but that is such a massive thing because, especially because it's on the road, and you start to see like you start to tell the world like, okay, maybe this isn't as big of a deal as you people think. And so now going into the Pac-12 tournament next week, you pretty much only need one win, and you have the bye um, to make a very very good case to
yeah,
be right in it.
yeah, I mean, with that win, because they were tied with Oregon, for third place with that win, they ultimately secure the tiebreaker. So even if Colorado was to somehow drop the next game to Oregon State and Oregon were to win, Colorado's still going to that Pac-12 tournament with the third seed.
Yeah,
So there is that as far as the conference level. But then yeah, like you said, I mean, a huge quadrant one win, which I think they came to this game 1-5 with the risk of even losing their
yeah,
lone win that they had against Washington. because Washington is sitting, yeah, near the end of the 70s. And if they went past 75 in the net rankings, that drops to a quad two win. But they upset Washington State yesterday.
Yes.
Um, so they should stay. They should, yeah, that quadrant one win should stay a quadrant one win, and yeah, definitely it looks a whole lot better for the Buffaloes. Um,
Yeah. I think another thing
and
that helped us out last night was Utah losing
yeah, that's true as
to
well.
Oregon State, so they're pretty much out of it, out of the running.
Yeah,
Uh, but now we can't lose to them.
yeah, no, I
It'll be
mean,
a very, very much CU thing to do to
yeah,
get that giant win and then kind of fall into the trap of an Oregon State team that just picked up a win against a team of our caliber. So
yeah. And Oregon State, they just seem to, I don't know, have this weird knack to just kind of get hot, especially Jordan Pope. I mean, yeah, he's a baller. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, no. But going back to the game, you kind of brought it up earlier with the free throw issues. But I mean, that was very nerve-wracking down the stretch, just being like, oh my God, the free throws, especially after that hadn't really been a problem this year, but having been a problem in past years. Um, but then again, with this game, you brought it up with the press break a little bit. But even though 13 turnovers isn't anything too crazy. Um, it's not great. It's obviously not great. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it leads to 31 point or 21 points in transition for Oregon. Uh, and it was really just, I don't know. It it seemed like really the only thing, or at least one of the only things that was keeping Colorado from just taking this game and running away with it. So it
yeah,
was really just odd to, I don't know, see it kind of come back in a way, but it was good to, go back to, what we've been saying this whole time about, you know, being able to overcome that and pull out a W. So
yeah, a huge win. And I mean, you said it best. I don't have really have a ton more to add. Just the fact that I think getting these quad on wins have been so hard because of how much of a down year the Pac-12 has had. And to finally find one against Oregon State and the last chance you could have had um, is going to be massive. And we'll see because we're still probably in the one of the first four out. But I mean, I keep like tripping myself up over it because does Joe Lenardi make the brackets? Like, or is
not
he just like an analyst?
well, he's a part of the bracketology. I would need to look into exactly who the whole like selection Sunday committee is because there's a whole committee. Um,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's odd because like I don't know. You look at all the different bracketologies, and I think like the USA Today uh bracketology like favors the Buffs and has them making it, while yeah, Joe Lenardi doesn't. Um, so I think
Yeah,
it's
I
a
mean,
little
we'll see
bit.
what he has us at. I don't. Did he say what he has us at now
Well,
after
he
the win?
said he said I don't know because I don't know. I made my Joe Lenardi comment earlier because immediately after the win, they went to the desk. I forget who ESPN has there to talk with him, but they started asking him. They're like, "All right, so what's the new bracketology?" And he starts going into some of the other Pac-12 teams. They're like, "Well, that was a pretty big game right there. Like, how like what do you
Yeah.
think about it?" And he was like, "Well, Colorado still just they haven't really had any big wins for their resume. That's really their only like flaw. And I'm not sure if this game moves the needle that much. Like, so I don't
Hmm.
know, a little
Well,
odd. Like,
I'm looking at it. We'll at least move over Utah. His last one. Okay, you can't see it, but it was from a day ago, so he still
okay,
hasn't posted today's. Providence hasn't played, which is what is ahead of us. None of the last four in played last night either. So knowing Lenardi will probably just move us up that one spot.
yeah, no, we'll see. I know we moved up in the net rankings from 30 to 29. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. They're
it's still
just
going to be so crazy if we miss out because it would be kind of historically unprecedented
yeah,
with
no, it'd be
the
wild
net
because
rankings and all that.
yeah, you brought up that top 30 stat. I think it was top 32. You said.
Yeah, it was top 31 or
Yeah,
two. I forget.
something like that. So it'd be yeah, pretty crazy to see them miss the tournament, especially if they win this next game and finish the season 22-9. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, looking ahead, if they have a good Pac-12 tournament with which they put themselves in the best spot, possible, um, with the hole they dug themselves in. I mean, you know, with the way the Buffs have played and some of the losses they've had, it feels like they should be as high in the conference as they are. I mean, if this was some other years, I definitely don't think they would be.
Yeah,
But uh, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just see what happens. And yeah, just look ahead to this Oregon State game tomorrow, and yeah, I mean, I feel like
it's
I've I don't know. There's no way. I feel like there's no way that this game isn't.
close,
Yeah, I feel like it would just have to be.
closer than it should be.
Yeah, I'm not sure because like I definitely there. I feel like there's no way that Colorado gets blown out. But like you said, it wouldn't be you know it'd be very Colorado-esque to go ahead and lose this game. So I wouldn't be surprised if the turnovers were were going up, more missed free throws, you know, bad refs,
Yeah,
just
we'll
everything,
see.
the whole
The whole
mishmash.
Pac-12 thing.
But but yeah, that really seems like everything. I think we check in sometime soon, either
Yeah,
at the end of the Pac-12 tournament, or at least release something before the men's Pac-12 uh tournament begins. We'll have to see exactly, but
yeah, and we can check in during that too. We do some of these.
yeah.
Um, but I think we're gonna be in Vegas till the end. I don't know if I want to stay, but I think we're gonna have some good basketball ahead of us. So me and Roberto are gonna hit the Whataburger in a little bit. We'll see. Uh, check out Vegas and have some fun while we're here,
Yeah.
even though the Buffs are out.
But yeah, even though the Buffs are out, I'm sure it'll be a good time. And definitely, I mean, it's always warmer in Vegas, but especially warmer than the snow we're getting right here. So,
Oh yeah,
uh, so yeah, but I'll be out there in that warm weather quite soon. So, looking forward to it. But as always, I'm Oliver Hayes,
I'm Harrison Simeon.
and you heard it here first. Peace.